What's he putting on you?
I have that, you walked in.
Oh, you're across the top of your back, yeah. He tattooed you from way back, I think. Then.
Yeah.
Yeah, you have that car, right? A really cool car?
Yeah.
You know, I quit tattooing 8 years ago. I tattooed 40 years, and people go, oh, just do one more. I went, man, you know, it's hard on your hands. Yeah, they're okay. I can still paint, but I just didn't want to tattoo anymore, especially all these great, brilliant young tattooers that work with me. That's, you know, you pass it on, so. I'm going to go. These guys are shooting this thing. All right, good to see you, man. Okay, John. Cool. That guy and I are about the same age. We were talking about the way the city used to be, you know. You mainly want to hang out with old farts and reminisce when you get to this stage.
Ed Hardy is arguably the most important tattooer the 20th century has produced.
Ed's drawing is just raw. You know, Ed will cross lines, Ed will lip shade.
He added another flair to it, and he put a new spark to the old images.
He hands down created this public desire for a media that had been a fringe medium for centuries. He can blur those lines between tattooing and fine art. He's always doing that.
He always wanted to kind of make tattooing legitimate, so to speak.
Whatever you can think of that you might have wanted to do, Ed's done it. Get a back piece done in Japan by hand, 1973, Ed went there. Published the first tattoo books, Ed did that.
Tattoo Time had incredible artwork in it. Just showing what tattooing could be, it was definitely a game changer. And I think it influenced a lot of people in my generation.
Hardy realizes the very much importance to make sure it gets documented somehow and in print. You know, this is the real deal.
He integrated the historical styles of tattooing from all over the world into a big, exciting monster.
He had so much roots and foundation and all of the art and application, and he'd come up with stuff totally original that he wasn't copying or taking from anybody.
Hardy's passionate about a lot of different things, but one that he is not as well known for is his art.
The art is totally my therapy. You know, I've never been to a shrink or anything, probably just as well. I've amassed this insane amount of stuff I've made, and you just want to pass on something that's been good to you. This was a log when I started my first shop, my daily reminder of 1968. This was my budget. The grand total was $3,000. Equipment, $325, advertising, $750. Initial rent, home and shop, $375. I was able to convince my first wife, my father-in-law, opening a tattoo shop was a business that could work, you know, in those days. Yeah, Thursday, April 4th. $22.50 the first day. Man, I'm off and running. I'll never forget. So there was a dummy rail thing that they had to pass under. There was no body table set up. And this guy came in. I think he was junked out or something. He's trying to tattoo this bird on his belly, and he's doing the swoon. I thought, oh, gee, this might be harder than I thought. From when I was a little kid, I was obsessed with tattooing. It just seemed like the coolest thing there was. And at the point when I graduated art school, I reconnected with it and thought, yeah, this has just got all kinds of potential. I tattooed for 40 years and retired from putting on tattoos about 8 or 10 years ago and back to my personal art.
And the Ed Hardy brand, I bet some people don't even know that's like tattooing.
No, no.
And then for a lot of people in tattooing, it was like, oh my God, you know, I can't believe he did this.
Yeah, the sellout, like that asshole, you know. Wasn't he happy enough that he, I know.
When Ed decided to sign the contract to license out whatever number of designs he did way back when, no one would ever have dreamed this would happen. And he had a great name, Ed Hardy, which sounds so American.
All of a sudden, Busta Rhymes had an Ed Hardy shirt and hat, and then Madonna was seen in it. So it blew up.
It financially afforded him a situation where he could focus on painting, and that's been great for him.
I got really annoyed when people started putting down Ed Hardy. But all they knew him was as some designs on sneakers or T-shirts. You know, no, there's an actual real thinking artist, continuing to grow artist behind that brand name you know as Ed Hardy.
I had a lot of people give me a lot of shit about that. Well, Ed, what are you doing, man? Putting your stuff on these t-shirts. How do you feel about that? I said, I feel pretty good. I bought this building.
One of the things that's fascinating to me about Ed and his family, his mom particularly, is that she kept everything, and that's become a family tradition. He meticulously records everything, and he's always got a journal on him. He's always writing all of this stuff down, and he keeps a record of all this stuff, and it's really incredible.
Super conscious about my legacy and everything, and I'm old now, and I don't know how long, you know, I'll be around to kick this stuff over, so I don't want to piece it out. I want it to go someplace. This was just a big ego rub for me. I want to just showcase all my art. I just thought, well, it's been a really interesting life, all this stuff happening, and because I've saved it all, you know, it'd be nice to chronicle it. Art never seems to make me peaceful or pure. I always seem to be wrapped in the melodrama of vulgarity. My first shop in Vancouver, down in an area, there's Sailor Jerry. This guy, Hong Kong Tom, that had the lead chair at Burt Grimm's, knew he'd worked with Jerry, and I kept saying, but I want to know more about Jerry. And he'd go, wow, he's a trip, he's a trip. And one night we were hanging out with Tom, we were smoking weed, and we went over to his apartment, and he broke open his foot locker, you know, the tattoo, we always kept all our stuff in trunks. And he came out with these color photos of Jerry's work, which included like these cranes. No one was doing tattoos like that. It was the color, the imagery, the beauty of it, the sort of mastery of the drawing. And I just remember looking at him and went, oh, well, so this is why Sailor Jerry's like everybody talks about him. And he went, yeah, he's a trip. And then this jumps to when I was working in San Diego, and I was really promoting the idea of doing big, unique tattoos, and we were probably clocking, we might have been making maybe $20 an hour or 25, but depend, you know, I was working for Doc Webb. That's where I got my chops up, tattooing hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of servicemen down there. This book, it was the first real book about Japanese tattooing. This book was the first revelation because it was all these classic Tokyo tattooers that were really doing stuff right out of the woodblock prints, 19th century style. The first time I went in Phil Sparrow's, he said, oh, you're an art student? He said, look at this is real art. This book just came out about Japanese tattoos. And when I saw those pictures, basically I thought, well, if they can do it, I can do it. And it was just like thunder in the room, you know, it was so incredibly powerful. The key connection was Kazuo Oguri Horihide in Gifu City. Oguri came over from Japan, and we all stayed at Jerry's house just over a 3-day period. And then when I saw this handwork firsthand, it was just like 3,000 years on the head of a pin. You know, we'd never seen anything like that. It was cosmic. And right away I thought, getting a souvenir. I said, would you do my back? And I was fixated on this one image from a Kuniyoshi print. It was just amazing, and he said I could come and work with him. So that's it, man.
Ed had a very strong focus on Japanese tattooing. He helped introduce that style to the United States.
There's only been a few non-Asian artists that have perfected the Japanese style to where they can take that stuff and make it their own.
Did you bring it?
Yeah. You want to
get a shot of it? Yeah, what the hell?
Okay.
One of my favorite pieces by Ed Hardy actually is a Tomomori. I mean, he put in so many of these elements, and but he just got such an angst in that face. Like, I think definitely with the Japanese stuff, like he took that simplicity, the boldness, like the toughness of American tattooing, and he made it so raw. That to me is just raw Ed power.
My Japanese art signature, which was Hori Onna. So that's what I was using when I went over to Japan and other things. So I came back from Japan dead broke. So I tattooed in San Diego and built up a little bankroll. And then I opened Realistic in 1974. I was 29 when I opened that up. People challenged me. You know, I never would have had the interest or smartness to do this style of thing as a tattoo, but by opening it up to people that wanted something very different, it opened me up.
When he and my stepmother Francesca decided that, yes, we should move back to San Francisco and he was going to open a custom-only shop. I knew it was really different. It turned out that that was the first custom-only tattoo shop in America, period.
Before the 70s, when I started getting tattoos, if you wanted to get a custom design, they were just like, nah, you can't get that.
He was way ahead of the game with that private studio business. When you walked into that place, you know, you felt like you're somewhere.
Once people started realizing they could get their dream tattooed on them, you know, a lot of people were doing it, man. Not because they thought it was cool, it's because they just plain wanted it.
He created a situation where everybody had to step up their game and step up to this idea of custom tattooing, and it changed everything.
All of a sudden, it was seeing him doing these sometimes small, sometimes really big, just elaborate pieces that no one had ever seen before.
I mean, I always said it was like going to Denny's or something. Well, what's for dinner? 6 things. I thought, this is stupid. You're going to wear it forever and you got to pick off the wall. I mean, I love the old Flash, but my whole mission with this is if I can just open it up and let people, encourage them to come in and tell me their ideas, it'll change this thing around. One of my favorite metaphors is a police sketch artist. You describe the person that broke into your house and the guy looked like this and he did this. And that's how I would try to pull the imagery out of people that I was supposed to draw. And I loved it when people go, that's exactly how I imagined bitching. Okay, good, we'll do that, you know. I knew that San Francisco would be the place that I could make it work because there was enough alternative consciousness. This city is famous, rightfully so, for people doing things a bit differently.
San Francisco has been a magnet for rebels a long time. I think you come here and you just feel like you can do anything.
I guess. That's my first publicity. Small town, they published a newspaper once a week. And all these kids started walking around with these really good-looking tattoos that my buddy Lenny and I were doing with colored pencils that you could put into water, and then it turned them into watercolor. And then Lenny's mom suggested Maybelline eyeliner for the outline because the black would stay on there. And then we just kind of segued into it, like, let's do tattoos on neighborhood kids. And we set up a little toy shop in my house, and those are our licenses. Those are 5th grade pictures. Lenny's dad had a bunch of tattoos from World War II. He was in the Navy. At 10 years old, I just thought, that's really far out. This was one of the first ones, ideas for tattoos, that Len and I did. We probably each drew one side of it. We'd try to get kids to come over just so we'd get to do tattoos, you know, and we'd have prices on them like 6 cents. And I drew these tiny because we were all little, but we didn't care. We just wanted to be able to do the tattoos. So this is probably 55. Yeah, the start of it was 55. So I was 10 and a half. And a lot of these were copied, you know, from Burt Grimm's. When I got revved up about tattoo, immediately I started visiting Burt's. I don't know how many times I actually went up there. You had to save up money and, you know, get on the Greyhound and go up. And it was amazing. He was 10, 11 years old, and our parents let us get away with it. I mean, those times were so innocent. So all these shapes kind of ricocheted back and forth in my life. It's Rock of Ages. I love it, having all this work on paper and keeping it, you know. A lifetime of fun. This is my room, which was painted black, ultra hipster, modernist painting. I lost all the series of art that I did at that period somehow. I remember I tore up an enormous amount of work on paper one day. I was drunk, and my mother was pleading with me. She said, please let me keep it. And I was like, no, this is my student work, you know, Mr. like so conscious, right?
Were you drinking every day when you were a teenager?
I tried to. Well, I couldn't really every day. I started drinking when I was maybe 13, you know, and just took to it like a fish to water. I mean, it was total alcoholic from the, I knew, I thought this isn't right. But every weekend we would just get throw up drunk, you know, it's terrible. It was an alcoholic culture. You know, these beach kids, and a lot of people lived in, you know, rich kids lived in, hey, there's a party at so-and-so's, and you just go over and trash this house, and they break in, you know, break the lock off the parents' liquor cabinet, you know. It's totally decadent. I didn't quit drinking until 1982 when I was 37. My wife, Francesca, finally just said, well, you know, I can't take this anymore. And I realized she'd meant it. And I tried to quit before that. And I went, well, that's it. And I just got on the phone and dialed AA, and it's like, so that, but I was still smoking pot, and I was, you know, snorting coke and crank once in a while. But I finally had to give up everything. You know, I had my fun. Self-portrait with Goya. I was in love with Goya, and of course when you're a teenager. And I got really hot on classical art, you know, eccentric classical art from art history. I just got obsessed with wanting to know where it all came from. I started scrambling around and reading and tracking down where I could. And of course, it was hard to find art books, especially down where I was. There was no real culture, you know. Grew up in this totally fascist right-wing, you know, Orange County. Everybody there was like completely, you know, crazy conservative. We all knew we just had to get out somehow. Luckily, I encountered a woman that was the high school art teacher. She was a Jewish intellectual from New York with a broad range of experience, totally unlike most of these, you know, people that were living in the area I grew up in. And then this woman kept saying, you could really do something with your art. This was a collage that I did when I was 17, when I got serious about making art, being an artist. My mother would save things, and she realized the importance of like keeping all this stuff. So, you know, I was glad I saved this one. And I used all this material from when I was obsessed with tattooing as a kid. It's supposed to be the life of a tattooer, so he starts out with like little kids, and at the bottom is this old-time tattooer, and he's like cutting stencils sitting on the midway. And I thought, wow, yeah, that was really funny. When I was a little kid, I was going to be a tattooer, but now I'm trying to be an artist. You know, I was just like fixated on high art, and I didn't, you know, dislike tattooing, but I just thought, well, that's a phase. I went through that, you know, not knowing it would come back and snare me in a couple of years.
Well, your haunts here on Russian Hill, Don.
That's right. The zone. The old zone, the old home zone.
Yeah.
From way back.
This place has been around since the 1920s and has been this fixture in San Francisco as this sort of, you know, kind of art anchor in many respects. That beatnik era stuff, that kind of funk stuff of the 1950s came out of here, which segued right into the early 60s when Ed Hardy came to school here from Southern California and followed a couple of his friends up here. A lot of people from the West Coast and from California always would gravitate to this place.
Yeah, it was legendary because the really important artists that had taught here became super important American artists in the mid-20th century.
Yeah, Mark Rothko had been here, and these great avant-garde filmmakers were here.
General feeling here was that people were just doing it because they couldn't not do it. They were compelled to do it. I'm going to make this art that looks like this and find like-minded people, and no kind of careerism or all the bullshit that runs the art world today on a global level, which is also why I think tattooing has become incredibly important, and it offers people a way to make their art or people to collect their art and to connect on some really primal kind of human levels that don't have anything to do with commodification. I love the fact that people would say, oh, well, your art won't be in the museums. I went, no, man, it's all going to be dead, but that's okay, you know. So, but then now we're making stuff that on things that might last. So.
This is where you worked as a student.
Yeah, that's actually where I met one of the people that were from Vancouver that led me to move on up to Canada. You know, I got to meet these people from BC, and I was just starting to tattoo then, so.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
And then Friday, you're going to the Legion.
Friday morning, we're going to the Achenbach. That's going to be fun.
Yeah,
very fun.
Good. Hi.
With the printmaking, there's a conceptual aspect, but basically, it's work. Get this, and there's a right way and a wrong way, and you make those things happen. I think that's what attracted me to it.
Well, it has that same thing that ceramics does.
Yes.
And with tattooing probably, where it's, you know, frowned upon as not being an art. You know, it's so technical driven that people forget, wait a minute.
Yeah.
You know, this is the real deal.
It's the real deal, yeah. It's something that's measurable, you know. Great drying racks.
Nice, yeah.
There was a whole thing, too, about the macho aspect of, like, the sculptors and then the painters. They were always, like, really dirty. You really knew they were a sculptor. It was corny, and like, oh, that guy's a painter because he's left all this paint on his pants, you know. And, I mean, some were doing good work, but a lot of it, there's just so much leeway for attitude abuse. I mean, it's like when I told that story with Gordon Cook, stay away from artists. Somebody that's self-conscious about, I am an artist, You know, give me a break, you know, come on, do something real.
Ooh, it's a nice clear day, too.
Yeah, it's gorgeous.
Did you ever surf when you came up here?
I surfed here for like about a summer. It was so cold, just decided to move to Hawaii, you know. I couldn't take it.
You couldn't take it?
Couldn't take it.
You're soft, Southern
That's
California
right.
guy.
That's right.
You
I
couldn't
know.
take that
I know
cold
all those
water.
pussies down there from Orange County, you know. The first apartment was that one right over across there, and then my wife and I had an apartment in a building out back here for a number of years. I've always been just magnetized to North Beach, you know.
One story I like about when Richard Shaw, when he was first teaching here, he had you come into his class.
Yeah, that's right. And give a talk, and he said, you should bring your machines and put on some tattoos. So, all right, you know, because I've been tattooing in San Diego then, and so this is just pre-Japan, so it was whatever year that was, 73, something like that. But then I got my gear out, and I tattooed Sean. It was the first pop art tattoos I did. He got a cup of coffee on him, and people just didn't do stuff like that then.
I'll tell you, if you ever want to come back and do that same thing that you did in Shaw's class, the students would really appreciate
Give a talk.
that. Give a talk and bring your kit with you.
Yeah, no, I don't tattoo anymore.
You're somebody who's always had that archivist mentality, which, you know, some people think is hoarding, but it's not really hoarding.
It's not really, no, it's all keeping that together.
Yeah, it's like
you know?
we're keeping the umbilical, you know.
Yeah, yeah, that's perfect, yeah. When I came up here to San Francisco, I wanted to do really dramatic things, and I was going to be a lithographer because I liked all this dark, stormy stuff and nuances of washes. But I connected with this guy, Gordon Cook, who was an etcher. He did turn me on to the nuances of like the interior life of what happens when you're just doing very, very everyday kind of things.
The relationship between, you know, Ed Hardy and Gordon Cook, you know, I don't think it was like a relationship like a master printer and his student. I think a lot of it was, you know, how to exist in the art world and how to sort of shepherd somebody through to encourage them to continue to make work and be an artist, and he was eager to learn.
So this is the city of San Francisco, and it was done on site from Twin Peaks. Myself and Martha Hall, we were kind of the lead etching students, and this guy Cook wanted to give us something that would really bust our butts. She had a car, and we'd go up there and sit with the wind blowing and the tour buses coming up and going, oh, look at artists looking over our shoulders. I mean, it's like tattooing also, right? There's no go-backs, you know, you just do it and then you etch it and that's it. This was a key image too that unfortunately I didn't save this plate, but I called it Future Plans. So this is 1967. It was when I graduated art school, and I was on a career track. I was accepted to Yale, and I was going to figure I would get a job teaching art. That's all of us figured we could do, you know, and allow us to keep making our own art. And I showed this off at the final student show to tell everybody, because I was kind of a student with promise. I was going to go on, but then I said, well, I'm going to be a tattooer, and nobody had ever heard of that then.
Can we look at some of your tattoos?
This one is the one I got from Negrete. Mi vida es un sueño. And then when it was my 50th birthday, I got the who, me duck, so it's a little dialogue thing. My life is a dream, and then he goes, who, me? And then when I was in Spain, I got this Om sign up there. I thought that was good. Like, it was like a question mark, but it's the Om sign, you know.
Who did the dragon?
Sailor Jerry. And this covered a bunch of those early, I kind of regret covering up all the early stuff, but you know, you can't cry over spilt milk. That was early on. That was my first wife's name, which I had to disappear, and then Douglas. Zeke did my elbows, and then they hurt so much, I never got them colored, you know. Yeah, Oguri did the rosary. I did the waves when we got back from Japan. Francesca stretched the skin, and I drew those on. But the Burt Grimm one really meant a lot to me. I did it laying on a bed in a hotel room in San Francisco. So that's 1981. Bob Roberts, total LA bad boy tattoo. I had the space, and we were visiting Bob, and I went, oh man, I need a tattoo from you, you know.
Your only tattoo from Bob?
No. What else did he do on me? Shoot, Malone framed out my back. Oguri did the main thing. I think I've got something else from Bob, but can't remember what it was.
We'll figure it out later.
Yeah, yeah. My memory's eroding as we speak, so all this stuff is, I can't bring most of it back.
I've known Ed Hardy since the punk days in San Francisco. You could meet everybody instantly. It was such a small scene. I did Research magazine. Modern Primitives was the most popular book I've ever produced. Over a period of years, at least it sold more than any other book I've done. And Ed wanted to do a real early tattoo magazine. And I said, well, I'll do the typesetting. It's right here. It's called Tattoo Time. I did this book on Ed Hardy because I wanted people to know that he's much more than a tattoo artist, that he's a real artist. When I met Ed, I went over to his house and I said, fellow book collector. I have 10,000 books in this house, and he probably does too. He's like the first person I met who was so scholarly about it.
Hey there, good to see you. It's been a while, right?
Yeah, sure, exactly, the whole deal.
I appreciate being able to look up stuff online, you know, but the physicality of having a book, and it's just like you see these things and there's something you can really cling to.
That's a Matthew Marks.
Right. Can I look at it?
Sure.
Okay.
We'll open it.
Books are the only inanimate things really in the world that matter to me, and art's not inanimate. It's got, you know, those are all transmitters in there. It's time to connect with people that I'm on the same wavelength, that we have tremendous, you know, interests and history and things, you know, keeping all that alive, all my teachers, all the painters I've admired. Guston was the main one because I got big on him really in the late 60s, you think? Early 70s.
Yeah.
All these forms and stories are embedded in me. They're like old songs, you know, or something. Well, I don't have this book, gosh.
Come on.
It's for sale, right?
You sure you don't have this?
I might have it.
Well, you can always return it, you know that.
Yeah. And the nice thing about losing my memory is it's all new. It's like, oh, look at this book. In to collect the rent, wet our beaks. Tattoo City, and a lot of great people have worked through there. And now we've got tons of guest artists. Now with this whole fluidity of movement among tattooers globally, it's fantastic, you know, it's really cool. It's going good, yeah.
The 90s really made San Francisco not just a tattoo destination known among other tattooists, it's like, oh yeah, that's the place to go, but it became a place like the public was becoming aware. Like, yeah, if you want great work, let's go to San Francisco, let's go to Tattoo City.
In the 90s, San Francisco and the Bay Area was the epicenter of modern Western tattooing. And that's because, you know, in the 70s, Ed set up camp here.
Oh yeah, my God. Yeah, unbelievable, man. Congratulations.
This was the only place I wanted to visit when I came to San Francisco the first time. It was the best place in the world to try and be a tattooer. And one day my phone rang and it was him. The floor dropped out from under me, you know. You don't expect that kind of call to ever come.
My idea for the shop was I always like classic shops that are set up very like what I walked into when I was 10 years old, you know, the small stations and a lot of history on the walls. That's a Dr. Lacra piece. That's Owen Jensen. It's one of my Ed Talbot sheets from my first shop. A Long Beach tattooer sold me that when he found out I was crazy about Sailor Jerry. And he said, that's one of Jerry's, but it's not really. It is Joe Lieber. And I have maybe hundreds of pages of tracing paper, line work, of pinups and all that. And it's almost impossible to tell their styles apart because they traded all this stuff. This is my original inspiration for the Screaming Gorilla, and that was from Burt Grimm. This is where I used to tattoo. This was my station with Ocampo painting up there. And these are my teachers, Sailor Jerry. This is Mr. Kuranuma, Horiyoshi II in Tokyo. it kicks your ass, man. Tattooing is really hard on you. It's hard on you emotionally, mentally, physically, every way. Paul Rogers used to say, you gotta pile up your coins. You gotta plan to take care of yourself in case you're fortunate enough to get old. I just figured, okay, you can graduate now, you know. More of the Danny Dottie, more things, some of my original Flash, the Ed Talbot stuff. This is from San Diego. These were all Sailor Jerry designs that I repainted. That piece up in the corner is a homage that I painted to Jerry when I came back from Japan, because he died while I was in Japan. So I painted up that memorial, you know, Rock of Ages at the bottom of the sea with the American flag. This was a sheet that was in the window of Fred Thornton's shop that I was obsessed with when I was a little kid. Burt Grimm from the 50s for sure. These were earlier things of mine from, 1968, Ed Talbot stuff from Vancouver. It's kind of a history of everything that was interesting to me, you know, about tattooing. Doug, I'll check in with you later then. And yeah, Mark and I are going to head out and then we'll see what happens. And then Sunday we got that lunch at the, yeah, right, okay. Okay, bitchin', yeah. Yeah, I'll see you. Oh, this was really early. Yeah, this is the first album. Yeah, 74 to 77. Yeah, these were all really early from realistic days. I mean, of course, I could tell boring stories about most of the people that are in them. I remember a lot of the people were friends, and it was important to keep these, you know, photo albums and stuff so when people could come in, they could just see what was possible, you know, instead of having flash on the wall. So these books go back all the way. And this was this guy, he's a physician down in Texas, and he would come in and he said, well, I want to do my whole bodysuit with scenes from this Wagnerian opera. That's Bob Roberts.
I worked with Ed at Realistic Tattoo, 1976, 77, 78, I was there. Everything was custom there. He could take these ideas and he could make it work as a drawing. You know, he just had a real natural talent for that. And it just used to amaze me, man. I mean, I thank my lucky stars that I got to work under him.
There's a baked potato. I love that thing. But it drove me nuts because she came in, I start out the first thing and like she lets out an ear-piercing scream. And I'm like, whoa. I said, I can't tattoo you like this. So she buried her face in the pillow and it's like, oh, oh. So that wasn't the most relaxing tattoo I'd ever put on, and I went right through it very quickly. People brought me these concepts that I never would have approached on my own, and was a challenge, you know, and took on a lot of things that I know could have been done better by somebody else, but that's about what it is. You just say, well, they want this, and I'll do it the best I can for them. This guy was really interesting. He was obsessed with having his tattoos like show and like tease people. He'd put this makeup on his hands, and he kept going further and further out, wanting to have his tattoos show and have somebody, you know, it was his fetish. And then I found this stuff that would blacklight pigment. And I think eventually he vanished. I don't know when he died, but all of a sudden at some point, nobody saw him anymore. This is all Japan. All Japan, rockabilly boys, great haircuts. That's me tattooing in Tokyo. This guy wanted bullet holes and 3 steps to heaven, because to them, pop American culture was their exotica, the way the Japanese was to mine, you know? So it was really interesting to get reconnected with stuff that was sort of my heritage. Yeah.
Did you ever turn down any tattoo ideas?
We always said the old saying in the old days, you didn't want to be the only tattoo shop in a town because you wanted to have somebody else that'd be your trash can. You know, some guy down the street, and you could trouble making people come in and go, oh, I'd love to do that, but my machine isn't clean yet, and you have to go send them down the street. You know, some guy with an attitude coming in, or some slob that just isn't, you know. Everybody's got an attitude of sorts. Tattoos came early, but I really, you know, was drawing and encouraged to draw since I was 3, you know. And this is actually from a shot from the Dragon Scroll. That's a part of the painting on the scroll. I kind of pay attention to the Asian zodiac thing just as a hobby. There's an animal for each year. I thought the millennial year is going to be a dragon year. Okay, I'm going to do 2,000 dragons, and in a continuous piece. A friend of mine built like a roll-through easel thing, and he started it on New Year's Day 2000.
The Dragon Scroll was a huge breakthrough for him.
When he started doing that, he started with like tight, big dragons, but then he started just getting big and loose with a lot of the things. Some of them were super abstract, like just big splashes of colors.
I thought, okay, this is my chance to free up. I'd always wanted to be more of a free painter. And that gave me the opportunity, and I would just get into like throwing some paint and like, okay, well, that's a dragon there.
I think he's just yielding to his subconscious and, well, you know, this came out. It wasn't really me doing it. I'm channeling it. The freedom to be abstract.
When you're tattooing, you're working on this very tightly rendered thing all the time. But it's interesting because in the abstract work that he does, he's able to maintain the kernels of these icons that he's used over and over again.
This shape was just a shape that I started using, and I do the black, right, just like a tattoo, and get that in really fast, and then realize where to build it from there. So on this one, I built it into American Indian thing, you know, so I put the beads on the moccasins and just whatever occurred to me, the feathers, that kind of stuff. I just like to isolate some of these elements and try to convey the weird energy that they have for me, you know. And then this thing, a late Kuniyoshi thing of a wizard from part of the Suikoden series, and this was a drawing for a guy's stomach piece in the early 1970s. It was a key image for me. And did this, I thought, well, I'll turn him sideways, you know. So this is basically that image. You see the hands locked. I mean, it's not like the tattoo. Like you start the tattoo and then you get in it and you do it and it's done. But with the paintings, you know, the paper doesn't care. But it's working out better for me to slow down and take my time on some of these and really think, well, what's going to make that finish out? Because nobody's got a gun to my head about doing it. It doesn't have to make sense. I don't want it to make sense, you know, and I don't want it to be an identifiable story. I want it to just function as, well, what's that? And well, it's a painting. That's it. I don't do them to like save the world or anything. I just want to make this stuff. Anyway, the printmaking, I got into printmaking in Chicago, revived it after being away from it for years. And these were actually done in Japan with Paul Maloney, he's a master printer. He turned me on to a lot of etching techniques that you could do more like brushwork. And I just made them up as I went. This one, I've always loved the gorilla thing, you know. This is from Bud Shark. This is lithograph. I still think it looks awkward. It's not, something's not right about it, but there it is. This is a painting that I'd done that I really liked and actually regretted selling because it was kind of a breakthrough of making a figure up out of traditional Americana tattoo. That was my idea of making up things of components to just get the form that you would need for a forearm or whatever. And then this was based on very much Burt Grimm style swallows that Burt would do as frame outs on a lot of those back pieces. All these things were drawn in one shot. I just went, okay, I'll do this. There were no prep drawings, it was just out of my head. They're all responses to whatever's in front of my face, I guess, when I'm, you know, creating the plate. I'm conscious of my age and what I've done with my life, and then, of course, I've amassed this insane amount of stuff I've made. You don't do this as a selfish thing. You want to see it passed on. You want to see other people exposed to it. It's not the fame or anything. It's just to pass along what my teachers passed along to me. So recently, I got the idea to call this Achenbach Foundation the Prints and Drawings at the Legion of Honor Museum, where I studied a bit when I was in art school, and they loved the idea, and so we're kind of giving them essentially one impression of every print that I ever made. And it'll be great for me to have that legacy, of have it in a place where people can see it. It's the biggest thing that's happened to me in a long time.
The fact that the Achenbach is interested makes a whole lot of sense with Hardy's work and shows you the caliber of his printmaking as well.
I'm really glad that some of his work will be preserved in that way because he is a very historically significant person in this art.
Hi, I'm Max.
Hey, Max, yeah,
I'm really so excited. I'm really,
well, this is wonderful for me.
Fantastic.
Yeah. These things I published last year. This was the piece that's based on the Rochi Shin breaking the temple.
And all the drawings that he did and the flash art that he did. I hope that people pay attention to it too, and not just, you know, his quote-unquote fine art, because he probably would bristle at that term, because art is art to him.
And knowing now that he's working with some people to get some of his artwork and some of his prints into like museums and stuff like that, I think is incredibly important.
You know, I'm all for private ownership, but I'm also thrilled that I get to go to museums and see stuff or call up things at you know, study centers. Gordon Cook was a master of the medium and just really bowled all of us over in all this aquatint.
I mean, here it's interesting the
aquatint.
different textures, like I mean, how he really kind of is able to grasp the different like waves and stone and yeah. I mean, this could be an Ed Hardy character, yeah. I mean, like, I mean, obviously, but this is obviously on the other hand deeply rooted in its own iconography that we are not so accustomed to.
I've actually done spin-off tattoos of that figure, you know, but maybe put them in a different context. So, of course, Goya and Rembrandt were two of my primary inspirations, and I've referenced a lot of this deep, so you know, legitimate art history via my own paintings, and just kind of, it's kind of like a shout out to these people that they did this, and I want to try to, you know, transmit some of that energy. So. We're just all transmitters, you know, as far as me and my art, and the transmission of whatever you've been able to find out yourself, it just makes it better. I'm not big on the idea of like original things or, you know, great ego or like I started all this. You know, nobody started anything. It's just, you know, it just keeps going.
We are absolutely excited about this, and I think it opens up so many kind of opportunities, and we need to do some great things with that.
No, it'll be terrific. And it's good to have it light up other people, and maybe young people come in and go, oh my God.
We need to get the prints here, and then get started.
Exactly.
My father's story should be known. And it should be known by people who are interested in this beautiful, weird art and craft that we're involved with. And I'm just glad that it will be that way.
You're a good boy.
I think it's really cool to see that childlike joy in a man who's had a career as illustrious as his.
He is a collector. He is an archivist of that, you know, tattoo history. He's a walking Smithsonian when it comes to that.
Him and his compatriots, everything pivoted around what they did.
Nobody has single-handedly done more for the promotion of tattooing worldwide.
Every artist wants to do something original and advance their art and their craft. And Ed knows that, and he did it. He's a leader.
This drawing I found that my mom saved, I think I was maybe 3 or 4 when I did this. My masterpiece was done by Donald. He said it's one of his best masterpieces. Retirement doesn't mean sitting around, you know, and watching wrestling. Retirement means more time to do my own art. I'm excited about everything. I'm proud about everything that maybe I had a little hand in bringing things along for people to develop what their personal, you know, like one of my cards, wear your dreams, you know, that's the thing. That's what you want to do.
There's nothing more important than creating as much art as you possibly can before you croak. I think that's the meaning of life.